Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Yes, you're correct. I nearly forgot what day it is. I mean, I am 50. I am getting old. You know, my old memory isn't what it is, but I can recognize this flipping awesome image. This is a beautiful Valentine's present from Joker Folio Do writer-director Todd Phillips, and what a genius this man is. He brought us a fantastic DC movie in 2019, the last successful box office global hit for DC as well. And you know, a lot of people at the studio doubted it was worth making that movie. It was a huge success, and I believe this movie will be a bigger success because, again, this movie isn't going to take a lot to make. Now, I think the biggest kind of expenditure is obviously Lady Gaga, what she's getting paid, and obviously Joaquin. And maybe she'll even get more money than he will. I don't know. But, having Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix in a DC Elseworlds movie is huge. They are the selling point. And the Joker's story continues. But in reality, what you're seeing here is that Todd Phillips' DC Black label continues, and this is the next villain story. And the next villain origin story in this franchise is Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn. I still can't believe I'm hearing myself say that, Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. And you know, the only victim here is going to be Margot Robbie, because she's kind of semi-retired as Harley Quinn right now. Who knows when we'll see her again. Now, before James Gunn became co-CEO of DC Studios, he said she would be back again, and I don't know what plans he had for her, but he hasn't mentioned her since taking on this role. That's interesting. I'm sure she'll remain the DC Universe's Harley Quinn, but I think this lady in picture here is where the excitement's going to be all about, and I'm sure that Margot Robbie stands and Harley stands are going to fight with everything they've got to try and say that Margot is the real deal more than Lady Gaga. But once you see her in this film, all the Harley stands are going to change their minds. Just look at this image. Look at the chemistry between these two actors and these two characters already. Look how amazing this looks. Now, in terms of where this movie begins, it's clear from the Joker's makeup, and I can only make the assumption it's the same makeup that he was wearing in the end of the last movie, that this movie must continue straight after the last. Now, this is very similar to the Penguin over in Matt Reeves' The Batman universe. I mean, the Penguin continues a week after the Batman, and I'm assuming the Batman 2 continues pretty much straight after the Penguin as well. And don't forget, next year's a pretty big year. We've got Joker in October of next year, 2024, but no other cinematic theatrical releases for DC. But I'm assuming next year we're getting Waller, we're getting the Penguin series, and also James Gunn's first animated foray in the DC universe. So it's a pretty big year still next year for DC. But obviously, in terms of DC Universe, the big thing, obviously, in 2025 is Superman Legacy and the Batman 2. Looking forward to them. But I think we're not being, starved of DC content in 2024. But this is the biggest thing. Todd Phillips is class, and it does look like this movie, Joker Folio Do, is continuing straight after. Let's just look. I feel a bit cruel to you guys and to myself to actually whip this away from the screen, because there is another image I want to talk about as well. But this looks absolutely brilliant. And as I said earlier, the chemistry for these two is absolutely sensational. Wow. I genuinely am so hyped for this movie as a DC fan. I loved the first movie, and it really spoke to me as someone who suffered with depression and mental illness and learning difficulties. I felt some empathy for Arthur Fleck, and obviously I would never do the things or justify the things that he did. But, I do empathize with his version of the Joker. I think in a lot of ways it's the greatest version of the Joker, because you actually kind of in a crazy way, and I shouldn't say this because people are going to start flipping out, is you kind of understand where he's coming from. As I say, I would never justify the stuff that he did, but you understand where he's coming from. Let down by society, let down by a woman, who said, that she's his mother, and look what she allowed to happen to him. He was cruelly abused, and so you do kind of understand in a way where he's coming from. I mean, it's an interesting point of view, POV kind of conversation to have. And this is why, progressives are very angry with this movie, and even telling you if you went, you could end up getting shot and killed. I mean, don't worry, progressives. What happened is for the sequel, I'm going to wear my bulletproof kettle iron vest, so nothing bad will happen to me as I'm watching this movie. I'm sure they're going to be upset, the progressives, about this movie. I hope they are. I love seeing them upset, and the more they shout and scream, the more money they're going to make this film. So I'm really hyped for this movie. One more look. It just looks fucking terrific. Anyway, there is another image that I want to show you. Now, thank you to Ronnie Dodge, one of my favourite subscribers, faithful subscribers as well, who sent me this to my inbox on Twitter. Now, this is Bruce Wayne, aka Michael Keaton, old man Bruce Wayne from the Flashpoint universe. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see it properly, I do apologise, I do not have editing software, so this is the only way I can show you stuff. But yeah, this is Michael Keaton looking rather nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. So, because I've seen this movie, what I would like to say is there is an element of madness and insanity about Michael Keaton's performance as old man Bruce Wayne in the Flashpoint universe. You can understand it. He's been alone for a long time. And having people like, the two Barrys trust him and Kara trust him, they become, for a little while at least, for a brief time, a little bit of a family. And it's something he hasn't had in his life for many, many years. So I think, obviously there's going to be an element of that, but I think he looks absolutely fantastic in this image. Another beautiful DC image, by the way. And, for me, I'm feeling absolutely positive for the future of DC. Let's just talk about Marvel for a little bit here. I know this is a DC Universe Daily, but one thing correlates with the other. But you look at their latest release, which is, I think it's being released this Friday globally. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has got about a 58% Rotten Tomatoes review score. I think it's a review. I think it's an official critic score anyway. I think it has to be because the fan score hasn't been released yet because they don't allow it anymore, do they? You have to wait till the film's released. So this is another MCU film that's failed critically. Now, obviously, this is going to have a huge opening. But one thing I would say about that, and I think this connects to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which had a huge opening. The drop-offs were pretty large for that film, and I think the drop-offs for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania will also drop off very, very quickly. So Kevin Feige's spoken about the future of the MCU, and he's just talked about they've started writing a Spider-Man 4, which is very, very exciting, and hopefully it's written by the same people who did Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm really looking forward to that one, and I hope Miles Morales is introduced. But the reason I'm talking about Marvel is because all of a sudden, Phase 4 has killed, in a lot of ways, has killed that franchise. And I want to talk about this in connection to DCU as well, considering what James and Peter are planning. After Endgame, the MCU was as popular as a franchise, as a business, as an organization can be. It was run properly, and we got that focal point, that bookending of the Infinity Saga. Now, personally, I prefer Infinity War to Endgame. I thought Endgame was extremely disappointing, killing off Thanos early, then them having to fight, a historical Thanos, which I thought just didn't resonate for me emotionally. But look, people who were supposed to enjoy it, enjoyed it. And that was the MCU at its hugest moment. And it's all about decisions. The decision for, Chris Evans to step down as Captain America, don't know whose decision that was. Scarlett Johansson to step down as Black Widow, and, Romanoff, a big decision. Robert Downey Jr. stepping down as Iron Man. These are huge decisions. That's the heart and soul of your franchise. And you've got a little bit left, but not very much. Now, in terms of Wanda, I think WandaVision was an excellent show, and that was a good start to phase 4. But you can see slowly and surely people were starting to get upset and disappointed with the MCU. And I think we do have a similar situation here at DC. We're not going to have Batfleck anymore, Henry Cavill's Superman, and potentially we won't be having Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman again. The heart and soul of DC, as we've known it since 2013. And so you've got to replace these people properly. Yes, the DCEU has had many problems. It's, some movies haven't done very well. Hardly any of the DCEU movies were, most of them failed critically, even if they succeeded financially. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people loved Cavill, Affleck and Gal as these characters, and people loved Ray Fisher as Cyborg, and as, Ezra Miller has their fans as well. I think he's a really, really good Flash. I wouldn't have cast him as the Flash, but I think as the Flash, he does a good job. I don't agree he's a bad Flash. Sorry, they're a bad Flash. I don't agree with that. So it's very important that we replace these actors. Unlike the MCU, that's kind of, look, for me, I know like in the I know in the comics, Falcon becomes Captain America as well. I just don't think the actor has that screen presence. I do like the actor, by the way, when he's being interviewed. He says a lot of good and true things that I agree with. He talks about the entertainment industry. I think he has the opinions about the industry that I do. So it's not a personal thing. I just don't think he has the screen presence. And I think Chris Evans had huge Christopher Reeve level screen presence. And you've got to replace that properly. No, it's not about the colour of the man's skin. I couldn't give a shit about that. But you really need a young Denzel if you're going to go black Captain America. A young Denzel as a black Captain America would have slayed it. And I'm sorry, but that actor who played Falcon before, right, for me, it doesn't work. So what DC need to do with their Superman casting, with their Batman casting, and potentially their Wonder Woman casting is to get it right. And they need actors with huge screen presence, whether that's whether these are inclusive castings by James Gunn or they're actually casted because of their talent, it doesn't matter. You've got to cast properly. And this is happening a lot in the industry where when they're casting inclusively, they're not too picky. Now, that's really bad if you ask me, because there are multiple great black actors out there. And I'm not genderizing black people. I mean, I'm talking about any kind of like identity pronoun. So, there's plenty of good black actors. There's plenty of good Asian actors, native actors, like Latino actors. But they think, oh no, as long as it looks like it's inclusive, we don't really care. And I think that's the kind of disconnect that's happened within the people running the industry and us, the consumer. So with this DC casting, they really, really got to get that right. And I think, but in general, I think DC's future is very, very exciting. I think all this year's movies are exciting. I don't care what anyone says, and I don't care about the fake propaganda from the Snyderverse stands. By the way, congratulations to all the Snyderverse stands who were involved with sell Snyderverse to Netflix. Just under, I think, 200k tweets. That is hugely successful. And yes, Netflix and David Zaslav, don't worry about James Gunn, he's not part of that process. Believe you me, he's not even part of the Joker process, right? At all, right? Todd Phillips is working closely with David Zaslav. We'll get back into Todd Phillips very, very shortly. But yeah, so congratulations to that fandom, because I think one thing, or many things we have over Marvel, which we've always had over Marvel, by the way, is the variety that we have. at DC. The fact that Snyder was doing something completely different and intriguing and unique to what Feige was doing, that was DC's strength and not weakness. But unfortunately, the leadership of DC and WB at the time lacked the vision and patience to see it. But right now, we've got this brilliant Flash movie coming out, Blue Beetle, Shazam coming out next month. Very excited. Now, I made a prediction to myself, and I may have said it on this channel, that I actually believe that Shazam Fury of the Gods will actually get reviewed better than Ant-Man Quantumania. Just you wait and see. Now, in terms of box office, I think it will be pretty hard for them to equal what Ant-Man Quantumania is going to do, because I think people are excited about Cannes. There's only one positive thing about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and that's, Kang the Conqueror, which is the only good thing about the movie. There's no question about that. But I do think that people are going to love Shazam Fury of the Gods. So I think it is a very exciting time to be a DC fan. I think, as I say, the variety in the stuff we're getting this year, the DC Universe, the fact that we're getting a Joker sequel, that we're getting a Batman sequel, that we're getting the Batman spin-offs on streaming, is very, very exciting. So there's a bit of everything. And hopefully we get more DC Elseworlds projects announced as well. So I think the way we are heading is so unique. And as I say, if the miracle happened and the Snyderverse was sold to Netflix and that stuff did happen on Netflix, again, it's something else, which I'm sure they would call DC Elseworlds as well. So you'd have Snyder, you'd have Gunn and Safran stuff, you'd have, Todd Phillips, which I'm sure when this Joker sequel is successful, his DC Black Label will continue. And I'm assuming that Matt Reeves' stuff will also continue as long as it brings the money in. If you bring the money in, Zaslav will pat you on the back and tell the world you're amazing. That's all he cares about. Because as I said the other day, that is the job of a CEO of a company. It's not the job of that guy to say, no, that's a nice person. Oh, they're a very good artist. I'll keep them. No. All Zaslav cares about, and all Zaslav should care about, if he's to keep things running properly, and as a fan I want him to be this, is to care about the money. If WB and DC Studios makes money, then we're all happy, because that means they're doing the right stuff. If you make money in life out of any business, any franchise, whatever it is, it means you are doing the right things. I have no doubts that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania will make good money in its opening weekend, but I do expect a huge drop-off. I'm sure they'll talk about big records, blah, 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 as they do, but critics are no longer afraid to be honest about these movies. Now, I think there will be MCU movies that they'll shill, like the Marvels, because it's free female lead. So they'll say it's the best thing ever, even if it's the worst thing ever. This is where we are today. And, I think the only thing I can say about the MCU is that they've started writing Spider-Man 4, and I think that's really, really exciting as well. So I have got some interest in there. I think the Thunderbolts is going to be awesome. I think the fact that Harrison Ford is going to be the American president in the MCU is also a very interesting situation as well. I'm sure he's going to be a bad guy because he's a white president after all, and this is where we are today, unfortunately. Fortunately for me, I don't judge you whether you're gay or trans or black or Asian or Latino or a native. I don't judge you. I judge you on my personal experience with you, or how I see you on social media and how, what you say and stuff. I judge you on you. I don't, but, the extreme left want to judge you in the box that you're in, and that is a problem, and it's caused an all-out civil war verbally. And that's the kind of society that we live in today. But I believe DC isn't going to be going down that way because Zaslav isn't going to allow it. I believe that Zaslav has got Safran and Gunn in a chokehold. And you have the freedom to do your thing. You know about this shit. I don't. But don't start getting extremists. Don't start attacking your customers. Now, James has been, a little bit let's say, rough with some of the Snyderverse stands, but to be fair to James, they have been very rough to him. They've been calling him a child abuser. They've been very rude. I saw something else the other day. So at the end of the day, he's giving back what he's getting. And, if you're going to abuse the man's, CV and call him a child abuser, when you have no evidence of that, by the way, then you're going to get stuff back. So it's no good playing the victim. But I do believe, in terms of what's going on at DC, they're going to do the right things and focus on the story. That's what James said in the presentation of the opening announcement of the new slate. He said the story is the most important thing. And yes, the story is the most important thing. When you're talking about entertainment, dramatizations, in television and film, the story is the number one thing. Now let's talk about Todd Phillips, because Todd is a very interesting person. So David Zaslav likes Todd Phillips a lot. So it's no secret at this point that James and Peter weren't the first people approached to run DC Studios, to be the co-CEOs of DC Studios. In fact, the first person that Zaslav wanted was Todd Phillips, the writer-director of the Hangover trilogy and the writer-director of the first Joker and the sequel, Joker Folie à Deux. He wanted Todd to run this studio solely on his own, and it's clear that if Todd didn't reject it, and obviously he made the offer, he must have said yes or no, and Todd obviously decided and said, no, I don't want that responsibility. I'm happy with the black label I'm developing here at DC. That's exciting, but I have no interest in running an entire studio. And I think Todd made the right decision. I think his knowledge of DC is very little. He's a filmmaker, he's a great storyteller, but he wasn't the right person to run DC, and we'll see if James and Peter are the right people to run DC. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I do think that James and Peter are more qualified than Todd Phillips to run DC Studios because of their knowledge of the comics, their love of the comics, and that stuff isn't there, isn't in Todd Phillips' toolkit. Now, he knows enough about the DC kind of black label line of graphic novels and comics to do something exciting, as he did with the first Joker movie. So if we could just focus on Joker Folie à Deux again, I am very enthused by this film because I think this is a dramatically different film, but it's also a film that continues from the first film, and that's clear. Now, something everyone's forgetting is that this is supposed to be a musical. Now, I don't know how many musical numbers this film's going to have, for example. I'm not sure if this is the entirety of the film is music, or if they talk. Look, I don't think this will be a total musical. I think there will be some numbers in there. I think Joaquin and Lady Gaga will be doing some numbers together. Now, one of the rumors I've heard is that to kind of, when they're like romantically together, that's when the song and singing starts. She sees all of that, Harley, as a song, and that's very, very Harley Quinn. Now, I'm not talking about Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Everyone thinks that Margot is the only person. Basically, they think Margot invented Harley Quinn, and she didn't. Margot Robbie is a very talented actor, no question about that. But fundamentally, she lost me with her extremist feminist views and propaganda in Birds of Prey, and we saw that James bent the knee to her in the Suicide Squad in Elements as well. We know that a couple of the tattoos were removed from the Suicide Squad. I don't think these were popular tattoos, but I didn't like the way this was done, and it was all very, very extremist propaganda, and this is what progressives do. Ultimately, let's look at Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Birds of Prey, flop. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, great movie, I love it, but as I say every day, it flopped. That's not me being mean to James, because I don't have an agenda against James. I like James, and I like the Guardians movies, and I like the stuff that he's done in the past, and I love The Suicide Squad. That's not my issue. My issue is that officially that film didn't make a profit. It failed at the global box office, and whatever the reasoning for that is, That's the fact that since Todd Phillips' Joker, DC haven't had a hit. And that says something about what DC have been doing and how good Todd Phillips is. Because Todd Phillips succeeded just like that because he's a genius and he made one of the best comic book movies of all time. No, scratch that. He made one of the best films of all time. Now, he says there's no commentary in this film, but I don't agree with him. I believe this is a purposeful commentary on a mentally ill gentleman who's helping his mum. You know, he's looking after his mother. You know, the system has let him down. He's on his own. I spoke about that earlier when I was holding up the image, the first image from Joker Folie à Deux. So I think there's great commentary there. But I think it's important to not make that an excuse to say, oh, well, Arthur Fleck was justified to do what he did. Nobody's justified to end up hurting innocent people. Even the guy he worked with didn't deserve what he got. So I want to be clear about that. But society just left him there to rot. And when you create a world, a compassionless world, people become compassionless. You create a being like the Joker, and again, it's a wonderful debate. I'd love to have on one of our lives again. I don't know when I'll be going live again because been busy. It's really cold here, especially when I like to do the lives in the evening, so it's a bit difficult for me to sit here for an hour or two and go live. But I will look to go live sooner rather than later. I do enjoy the lives, by the way. But yeah. So I think this sequel is going to make as much commentary about Harley Quinn's situation as it did with the Joker's position. And I think it's going to be interesting how the public see that element of Harley Quinn. And, you know, will this Joker manipulate her to become who she becomes? Is she already a lunatic before she meets the Joker? That's an interesting thing. It'll be interesting how Todd perceives this situation, because Todd's worldview isn't typical to the Hollywood, to current day Hollywood. You know, I know what his worldviews are, and they're not the same as other creatives in Hollywood. So that's going to be interesting how he goes at this and how the public receive this. So will the Joker manipulate Harley, in this situation, or will it be a mutual romance? Now, personally, I think this may be a mutual romance, and I don't think he's going to go that way. It's going to be interesting what kind of Arthur Fleck and Joker we get in Joker Folie à Deux. Is it the character we saw in the first movie, or has this character now gained momentum and confidence? And I think at the end, that last sequence when he's talking to the shrink, you can see that there he's already gained a lot of confidence. So I think this is going to be a fascinating film. And this could be not only an Oscar nod for Joaquin Phoenix again, but the wonderful Lady Gaga. Now, I understand Lady Gaga isn't everybody's cup of tea. I really don't care if you like her or not. She's a talented singer. She's become a talented actor. And this is perfect casting. And as I say, when you've got Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga on your title card, nobody can beat you in the comic book genre. Name me a title card in any upcoming comic book movie that's better than this. Even if you're excited about Keaton. You know, Keaton's great, but Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix are cinema gold. It's as simple as that. And, you know, I'll take no questions about that. That's just how I feel about that situation. I think this is going to be a very exciting, huge movie. And again, DC are doing things that Marvel refused to do. For example, Deadpool being R-rated isn't the same as doing two, like Black Label, R-rated movies. It simply isn't the same thing. What we're seeing with DC, and in fact what we've been seeing with DC ever since like the Joker and Matt Reeves' The Batman have been commissioned, really that Elseworld has already been there, but they haven't labelled it officially, but it's still been there. So we've had this film, The Joker, we've had this film, The Batman, and they've been like away from the DCEU at the time. And I think that's really worked. Both movies were a huge hit. And I believe if Matt Reeves' movie wasn't released when we were still kind of coming out of the pandemic, I think it would have definitely made the same similar money to the Joker movie, which was well over $1 billion. So, as I say, a very exciting time to be a DC fan, and I couldn't be more excited for us as fans. And I think Movies TV Mad is a positive place right now because DC is a positive place. This has been Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.